Well, I grew up in Kanab. I was born here in Salt Lake, and then when I was about 3 years old, I guess, maybe a little younger, I moved. My parents moved down to Kanab, and I can remember we were running a motel for Grandpa and Grandma um, when my little sister was born. She's 4 years younger than me. Um, she's now living in Hurricane, Utah. They have a pecan farm there. Um, I had another sister, but she had heart problems, and she died quite a while ago. She was my youngest sister. Um, I know that my mother had a number of miscarriages during the time we were in Kanab. Um, I learned about that later in life, I guess. Um, I remember my uncle, Calvin Cottam, was in St. George. He had a gas station there. And I heard about him when he got older, and he lost skin and had all kinds of weird ailments. But he was paid to wash the cars that came across the desert after the nuclear tests. And I've got a number of cousins down in St. George that were even closer to the nuclear tests than I was. So far as I know, none of them have got cancer yet. So I guess I'm one of the lucky ones. I had a lung cancer in 2017. And I guess it was right before last Christmas. I had a seizure, and my left side was paralyzed. And I came back here and had a 30 millimeter tumor on my brain, which was kind of unnerving, you know. It's a cancer that's metastasized from the lungs, so it's not good news, and I'm 68, I guess. You know, I've got a few more years, I hope. I hope a heck of a lot more. I got plans. My youngest sister had a heart valve defect. What that was caused by, we don't know. Could have been. Like I said, my mother had some miscarriages. Thinking back on it, I'd probably guess that maybe the testing had something to do with that too. Like I said, my uncle had some skin issues. As far as I know, though, none of my other relatives have had any real serious cancers. Now, I've got a cousin that has a rather bizarre neurological disorder that's living down in St. George now. She grew up in St. George. I was diagnosed quite some time ago with chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, which is kind of an odd one. Theoretically, it's caused by an overactive immune system, but Robinson Singleton is my neurologist. He's fairly well known at the U School of Medicine. And I don't think he's completely convinced that that's what it is, but that's the closest he could come. We were told that it was harmless, more or less. And some kids would say, oh, don't eat the snow, it's radioactive and stuff like that. It's like, so what, you know? Well, gee, come to find out, we were being used as guinea pigs. You know, they never set off any of the nuclear tests when when the one was blown towards Los Angeles. It's always coming our way. I was too young at the time to really understand what was going on, you know. And we didn't really pay much attention to it, you know. There were people that would go up on there was a place you could go up on the old airport in St. George, and you could actually see the mushroom clouds. And I know that there were people that went up there. It seems to me we went up there once to see a mushroom cloud or something like that. I think overall, nuclear weapons are probably the biggest disaster we've got on this planet. You know, we should have never set off the first one. We certainly should have never bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It wasn't necessary. I believe that was done to really see what would happen. I don't believe we needed to end the war that way. I really don't. And being a veteran, I'm extremely anti-war. And I have trouble not crying over at the VA hospital sometimes, seeing those young guys. You know, the Vietnam War was supposed to be the last war. Now it looks like we're going to go after Iran. Let's say dumb idea, to say the least. And North Korea, nuclear weapons. We've got more than enough nuclear weapons to destroy life on the planet many times over. And for some silly reason, they keep doing it. Now, when I was in business for myself, I did an inspection on some parts that were for the nuclear blast simulator. And I know they've got the nuclear blast simulator completed, and they're using that instead of testing. Now, we've made a big mess over in the Pacific Ocean. You know, this power plant in Japan that's leaking radiation is nothing compared to the Bikini Atoll and other places that we've irradiated over there. So, you know, you hear all this talk about the Fukushima power plant leaking radiation into the Pacific. Gee, big deal. You know, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what those nuclear weapons left, the nuclear weapons testing. The people that were the most affected were the closest to it. But certainly, I mean, that the pollution from those nuclear tests had to go all the way around the planet. And, you know, the tests in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Oh, an interesting side note. Just thought of this. One of my dad's relatives was a physicist in White Sands, New Mexico, I believe it was, or Los Alamos, somewhere down there, when they set off the first atomic bomb. They were pretty sure it wasn't going to start a chain reaction that would destroy the world. They were pretty sure. They weren't absolutely certain. Now, if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, nothing will.